study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
You have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Easy, taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
It's More Money with leading economist Steve Moore. Now, here's your host, Steve Moore.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore, and I've always said I'm not the world's greatest radio talk show host, but I do get some of the world's greatest guests on my show, and that certainly applies to my next guest, who is a hero of mine, and I know a lot of you listening to the show across the country. I'm talking about the great Senator Phil Gramm, the former senator from Texas, who played such an incredible role in the Reagan Revolution in the 80s, 40 years ago, in terms of really turning around the economy from the terrible 1970s. Just to give you one statistic, when Reagan became president, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was 1,000. Thanks to the work of course, the Gipper, but also great economists and senators like Phil Gramm, the Dow is now at 52,000. So what an incredible period of wealth creation. Senator Phil Gramm, thanks for joining.
Well, thank you, Steve. Policy does have an effect.
It sure does, doesn't it?
Question about that.
So that's exactly why I wanted to have you on. By the way, Phil Gramm has a wonderful his book, latest book is called The Triumph of Economic Freedom. But I wanted to get him on today because he has an incredible piece that everyone should read in the Wall Street Journal today on the Reagan tax cuts and how they really transformed the American economy. I read every word of it and I agreed with every word of it. And I will simply say that tax cut may not have happened had it not been for the heroic work of Phil Gramm. By the way, at that time, Senator, you were a Democrat.
That's right. And in fact, if you'll recall, we Republicans did not have a majority in the House. And so we were able to put together a coalition of almost all the Republicans and roughly 30 Democrats.
Yeah, 30 Democrats in the House, right?
Yeah. You got to remember, in those days, there was still a fair number of very conservative Democrats most of them from the South.
Right. Now, so you put that together, you passed the Reagan tax cut. You were sort of the lead Democrat on that for sure. And then you also passed the Reagan budget with those spending cuts, and then they kicked you out of the party, right?
Well, I had offered in 1980 with David Stockman a budget we call the bipartisan recovery budget.
Right.
And it had gotten enough Democrat votes that when the 1980 election votes were counted, that with the Democrats that had voted for our budget in 1980 in the House and the new Republicans, we had a majority. And so our task was to try to put together a budget and a tax cut that could assemble that majority. And we were able to do it with a very, very narrow margin, but we made it.
So the real key, in my opinion, I learned this again from reading your great piece in the Wall Street Journal today, is that when Reagan came into office, the highest income tax rate was 70%, which is, unfathomable that we would have a policy that would be that destructive to the economy. And through the first tax cut that happened in 1981 that you helped pass, and then the second tax cut that happened in 1986 that you also played a big role on with people like Bill Bradley. And that second tax cut really was bipartisan. We cut the highest tax rate in the United States from 70 to 28%, and we increased revenue, as you show in your article, but also the corporate tax rate went from, I think, 50% down to, I think, 35%. And it was the Laffer curve. We got more revenue with lower rates. How'd that happen?
Well, and also, in addition to the fact that when you let people keep more of what they earn, they work and they save and they invest and they innovate more. In addition to that, in the 1970s, you had an explosion of social welfare spending.
Yes.
With the inflation rate, which reached 13.3% in 1980, you had Americans that were being pushed into higher and higher tax brackets. And we had 24 different tax brackets, so that the tax burden during the 1970s grew twice as fast each year on average as it had grown in the years since the end of the Second World War. And by 1980, the federal government was taking more of the income of the economy than in any year in American history to that point, except 2 years during the Second World War.
Right. Amazing.
And so what basically the situation, as I was explaining to Democrats at the time, is that the tax burden now is so great that the Congressional Budget Office, which is people totally by Democrat appointees, is saying that if we don't reduce taxes in 1981, that we're going to see growth choked off. And in fact, that tax burden pushed us into a recession before Reagan took office, and then it double dipped in 1981. So the tax cut was critical because of the tax burden on the economy literally made full employment impossible. And we were able to convince Democrats who were skeptical of supply-side economics that the alternative to cutting taxes was to preclude the ability to put Americans back to work.
I think that's exactly right. And then we had the 1986 bill, which was, by the way, that was, I mentioned this last week on the show, and you know these numbers, Senator, but that passed 97-3 in the United States Senate. Now, you were one of the 97 who, of course, voted for that bill, but you even had people like Al Gore, you had people like Joe Biden, you had people like Howard Metzenbaum, you had people like Ted Kennedy who voted for that bill because they realized a broader tax base with lower tax, a broader tax base with lower tax rates would improve the economy. But today in the Senate, I don't think you get one single Democrat to vote for something like that. What do you think happened to the Democratic Party?
Well, I think we had an extraordinary set of leaders in 1986 who really understood the tax code and understood that we were basically using the tax code for industrial policy. Many of the tax incentives it created were political payoffs, any kind of economically valuable incentives. And we were able to get a dynamic going where if one side, the Republicans, under Bob Packwood, were willing to give up their, quote, tax breaks, the other side would. And the net result was clearly the most efficient tax code that America had ever had or has had since. And a tax code that basically, even though it dramatically reduced rates, did not reduce tax collections.
Right.
Because we had stripped out all the underbrush of giveaways in the tax code.
Yes.
And now many of those have come back, as you know, Steve. And one of the points I make in this paper is currently, when you look at the personal income tax, the top 20%, top 60% of taxpayers pay 105% of the personal income taxes paid in America.
Now, how can they pay 105%?
How can that be? Because the bottom 5% gets 5%.
They have money back. Right.
And money back that they never paid in. Tax credits. So the IRS is now one of the largest welfare agencies in the federal government. That's how much the system has degenerated since 1986.
Yeah. By the way, every time, I mean, you know this, you mentioned it in your piece, but I mean, just about every time in American history that we've cut tax rates, including in the 1920s, and including in the 1960s, including in the 1980s, and even under Trump tax bill, the revenues have increased. I mean, it's happened every time.
Well, and high-income people pay a larger share of the tax.
That's right.
Our tax code, this argument that, as I talk about in the paper, that the Reagan tax cut was a tax cut for the rich. If you look at the relative tax burdens before the cut and after the cut, high-income people paid a larger share. Low-income people paid less.
Yeah. So, Senator, we only have 3 minutes left, and I appreciate so much on a Saturday afternoon you taking some time. I got two last questions for you. First of all, I have to ask you about AI. This is, as I see it, going to be one of the most incredible productivity-enhancing revolutions with robotics coming and so on. I'm on the board of a company. We build houses with robots. We're going to cut the cost of. So, and yet people are afraid of it. And tell me why it is that. I mean, that's like being against the farm tractor, which moved people off the farm. So is AI a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, we never adopted a major technology in the history of mankind that didn't make us better off.
Right.
And the most dramatic change, the Industrial Revolution, made us much better off. I am fearful that government is going to get in the way. And what we need to do is let the market work and then decide on how the legal structure of the country needs to respond to it. But we shouldn't fear AI. We should be excited about it. And to this point, despite all the talk about lost jobs, go look at the unemployment statistics. The jobs in the aggregate are not being lost.
Yeah.
And jobs are going to be created that we never even thought about. And this idea, well, AI can produce all we'll ever want, and so then nobody will do anything. One thing I have confidence in the Homo sapien for is our wants are always greater than our income.
Okay, final question in our last 25 seconds. Is Elon Musk a villain or a hero?
Well, he's a hero.
Yeah.
At least in my house, for a fairly low fee, I have his satellite, and it connects me to the world. Now, he's the richest man in the world partly because of it. Am I poor because of it? No, I'm richer.